Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Boy, whoa. Seems like we were just here. So we got some groups I don't see, and we're gonna, Gina says I can skip over her because she might take some time, so we'll try and get some people in and out of here. IT, I don't see Kim in here. I don't know if she hasn't had anything. I think we've covered about, she got the last thing she needed this morning. Environmental Health Museum.
So I did meet with Joseph and he had a page, he had a handout that I wanted to share if you can. Oh, okay. Yeah. One of the interesting things is that the museum has a school program working with grade school kids, and she is absolutely scheduled up through the rest of the year, and they're a little bit worried that she's going to have to start turning some people down. So she's asking for volunteers to join her so that, you know, it's not just her. So
would it be improper to volunteer you? I mean, I remember some when the historicals, it was fascinating.
yeah, it is. I mean, she tells us she gave the program at First Thursdays, the First Thursday program this month, and it was a wonderful introduction of the Longview story. So yeah.
And Steve, we could get Steve.
Oh. I'm not sure that's very nice. All right, at any rate, they are putting together a new display area in the one room where they have constantly changing displays. And the theme is going to be 1923, the year that changed Cowlitz County history. It actually didn't start with the city of Longview. It started with the collapse of a suspension bridge connecting West Kelso with the main city of Kelso in an ice storm in January. The deaths, and there's some pretty dramatic pictures of cranes pulling entire cars out of the water, and it was pretty horrific scene. But anyway, the theme is going to be what happened in 1923. So a lot of it's going to be that. There was another city that was started in 1923, not just Longview. We tend to get focused on Longview all the time. Riderwood was created that year as a logging camp, the main logging camp for Long Bell. So that story will be all part of it and be a pretty nice item. One of the things that he did mention is that they have been working with the Cowlitz Tribe so that Danielle's school programs has their approval in terms of the content being culturally sensitive. And so that's a good relationship to have. They have been hosting the Columbia Artists Association, and people have been invited to come and look at the art and select their favorite works of art, and those artists get special awards. Let's see, there is the next first Thursday beginning in May is going to be the Lower Columbia Genealogical Society. So that might be interesting, helping people trace back their heritage. And then in June, another talk with author John Simpson, who interpreted letters discovered up above the funeral home right across the street. It used to be called Davidson Moore. And the Moore family was related to a family of brothers who joined the Civil War together. And they wrote letters back and forth to the family. About 5 years ago, there was a box discovered by the current owner of Davidson Moore that had all of these letters that had never been shared before. And so he's written a book about it. And it's pretty interesting because he also has a presentation on that family's connection with the city of Longview. It's very interesting data and background. So great stories. But the other really important thing of concern for the three of us, of course, is the HVAC update that was scheduled for this spring has been delayed until August and September. Apparently supply chain delays or something that they couldn't get the equipment. They're gonna have to get some temporary AC.
So they have no AC?
So they don't, they're gonna have to get a portable AC for
Okay, yeah.
maintaining the temperatures at the appropriate levels. So other than that, I think, yeah, if you're interested in following along with Danielle on one of her presentations, feel free to contact Joseph and set that up.
Perfect.
All right.
We have a lot of great little treasures in our community.
We do. Yep.
Well, I'll jump down. I don't see Ryan. I don't think there's any public defense.
So I'm wonder if we need to continue the conversation about where they're going to move to. We talked about it briefly, I think, on Monday. And we talk about issues like that, and I'm never quite sure who gets tasked with following up on the details. And
What-
Yeah, it kind of needs a champion like everything. And way back when it became clear that our real issue is a problem with the Hall of Justice. But trying to get any action there is almost impossible. But we've got, before going into that, we've got, did you mean to do that before the people who are here?
We can run it through miscellaneous. We talked with Mike a little bit about it. And
Yeah,
I know he's gonna schedule a bigger discussion. I don't know how broad the scope is gonna be, so I think we do have, it's not on the agenda yet, but there is something coming.
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Get a report back from Mike.
The big part?
We'll be getting a report back from Mike then on that.
And no, we will get an invitation to a meeting from Mike probably, and maybe a possible report. Like yesterday, we were a little confused about how much space OPD needed.
That's true. That's right.
Yeah. So we'll try to make those known and try to do a better job of that. I do see Kim here. I see Event Center, so you must have something, huh?
How's the horse arena doing?
Progressing.
Happily?
Yes.
Good.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Kim Boca with Cowlitz County Center, and now my microphone is on. I really didn't have a whole lot for you, just a few tidbits. The Cowlitz County Fair and Thunder Mountain Pro Rodeo the planning is underway with both of our boards. The theme this year is Barn to be Wild. And of particular interest to one or maybe all of you is that there's going to be a brownie baking competition this year that they'll be looking for judges.
What kind of a day?
A brownie competition, brownie baking competition.
Baked brownies, not trying to decide whether.
Baked brownies. And historically, they've asked at least one commissioner, some judges to come judge. So,
What kind of brownies? Medicinal?
oh, and they can't have, apparently there's very specific rules. They can't have frosting. They're like a specific brownie.
Oh,
So,
wow.
Well, this is where I pull the age.
I believe last year might have been, I believe it was carrot cake last year, but this year it's brownies. And at the event center, starting actually tomorrow, the National Specialty Vizsla Dog Show is starting. That will continue into next week. And next Wednesday, we'll have them exiting and the Dalmatian Club of America moving in for another dog show, a national dog show. So the event center will be used quite heavily over the next couple weeks as well.
Or as they've begun to say, it's going to the dogs.
It's going to the dogs. We've gone to the dogs over there. They're
Speaking of
using,
dogs, how about what is that? Have you seen a flyway? Can you help me on that flyway? Dogs have to speed down, pick up a ball, drop it back, then the next guy goes in a relay and there are 4 of them and.
I'm not
That
familiar
sure
with
would
this
attract
competition, but
attention.
I know they're doing some scent work in some of our buildings and there's a lot of different competitions. And I don't know that that's one of them, but I'm about to learn a lot about it. So if you'd like, I'd be happy to forward the websites with their schedule to you guys. So if you're interested in coming or any of the public. And there's more information on our Facebook page as well.
I just assume you organize it all.
It is organized. So we're excited about that. This is one of those events, or these are both, they've been in the works for about 3 years. They're using just darn near every square inch of the fairgrounds at some point for different parts, whether they're camping, holding competitions, dinners, their awards, they're staying in local hotels, eating in local restaurants. They've been working closely with our tourism assistant to find places to go and things to see, and we'll be visiting the mountains. So I'm pretty excited about both of those events happening. And with that, just an update. I know Brian Magnuson was here a couple weeks ago talking about the Public Facilities District, the kickoff meeting with Johnson Consulting to update the master plan for the event center that was done in 2010. They're going to revisit that and update that. The kickoff is May 10th with Johnson Consulting and the Public Facilities District Board.
We might have a volunteer to send your way for that.
Okay.
It is, I know Longview is part of that now, right? And Kelso was thinking about it, but not sure.
Correct. Longview will be also participating in their own study, but with the same company. And
Gotcha.
they'll be looking at their sports
Okay.
facilities and other land use of different properties that they own.
What they can do.
Which is
Gotcha.
great. It's a great time for them to evaluate their properties as well as the event center to see how everybody can play together rather than being in their own silos and doing their own thing. And pretty soon we're duplicating efforts. And so this is a great opportunity. So hopefully the city of Kelso will be joining as well, but I don't have an update on that.
Yeah.
I don't have a new report on the status of the hotel. I believe there was an extension given by the PDA. So I believe in May, we'll hear more about that. And then just a little bit of negative news, and that's just we've had a bit of an uptick in vandalism. The building that's unsecured across the street from the main complex at the event center that's unfenced. It looks like an airport hangar, but it's looks kind of like a
little
bunker.
dog.
Mhm.
Okay.
We've had some vandalism there, so maintenance came over today to help secure that building a little bit better. The local pigeon club uses that. They run their pigeon racing out of there, and they had somebody broke in and damaged some of their computer equipment and tried to set a fire. So we're getting that. And then we've had some graffiti as well. So just wanted to let you know that we're taking care of that. That's what I have for you guys.
I might prompt you here for just a second because I was at the meeting last Wednesday. Was it March that you had? How good was March?
Oh, our revenue for the event center was a record-breaking month, and I don't have those numbers with me, I don't believe, but actually I'm lying. I think I do have them. No, I don't. Just over $400,000 in revenue for the month of March, which was our highest revenue producing month to date since the facility opened.
How much again?
I believe it was 425,000. Don't quote me on that, but it was over 400,000 in revenue.
Yeah, very nice, very nice.
For 1 month.
Want to make sure. you
St.
didn't
Patrick's Day
forget
party.
That was a lot of it, yes. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was pretty exciting to see those numbers and looking back, because we keep our reports back to 2005, and that's our largest month so far, so.
You know, I believe because not just because I'm liaison there, but I listen to the guys and they talk and it makes sense. I think the things that you're looking at are going to give you like that party, the multi-day events is where it really starts, where you start seeing those revenues. So
Yep.
I truly believe that you'll start seeing more of that as we keep improving that area.
Yeah, and so last week, I believe my weeks are running together. We've been very busy, which has been wonderful. We did have a company in-house for 2 days that did an automation trade show where they invited people from all over the state to come and look at their equipment, and they had dinners and breakfasts and stayed in local hotels and at our staff meeting, I said, this is exactly why this facility was built. They needed the concrete room to be able to bring in all of their heavy equipment and uncrate it and move it into the nicer room that was presentable for the public. And they had breakout rooms where they were able to teach people how to use their equipment. And and I said, and they're using our caterer and they're using our local hotels. And this is exactly why this facility was built, to bring business like this to our community.
Yeah. Great. Any questions?
I'm impressed
Thank you.
and thankful.
Thank you. So am I.
Thank you, Kim.
Mhm.
Jennifer, I see you out there. Did you have something for us?
Yes, I brought show and tell.
Okay.
At your request.
Jennifer, don't forget that you follow up a $425,000 month of revenue, so we expect about the same.
Yeah, about that. Okay, so before I bring this up and then we can pass it around the room for those who are here. I brought a small sample of Slenderflower thistle. So this is one of our Class A thistles that we're treating with our grant funding. So last week or two, we had a grant that was approved, more of a continuation, but this is one that we're looking for. So
Is this that new one that you discovered?
it's
first time
not the
last
new
year?
one, no.
Okay.
They're very closely related. So just imagine that you're out with a backpack sprayer searching for this little guy.
I'm thinking I've identified the problem right now is our own weed board is growing them.
Well, I went and picked this fresh today and you can see it's already wilting. What we've learned is that weeds will grow out where they want to grow, but as soon as I try to grow them in the office, they are very unhappy.
These
Ah.
make a flower like a normal thistle.
They do. So I've left a fact sheet here. This is the flower that will develop on this. So this plant, while it typically will grow and flower anywhere between 4 and 6 feet, I've also, the main infestation that we're treating has had flowering plants that were 3 inches tall and producing flowers. So that presents a real struggle for our team. I think what had happened, we did an initial treatment for the larger rosettes. The right weather pattern came in and a bunch of little seedlings sprouted and realized how little time they had to live. So that was a very challenging season when that happened, hoping for that to not happen again. But we're a little behind with the weather patterns this year. So this typically starts flowering in early May, and I think it's going to be flowering late May. So we have a little more time on this one this year.
In its own environment, what keeps it from taking over the world, like in Europe and Northern Africa?
I don't know the specifics as to what keeps it under control, but typically with noxious weeds, in their native environment, there are bugs, funguses, parasites that will naturally eat them. And when those noxious weeds are brought here, typically those predators don't come with the plant when we bring them in as ornamentals or if they make it in the hay. So whatever feeds on it in its natural environment that keeps it in check is likely not here with it. So.
And you spray?
We do. We also hand pull this one depending on this life cycle stage. If the buds have developed, we've found that spray is ineffective at that point in time. It will still continue to produce seed. So if it's budding when we find it, we just remove it by hand. And try to encourage all of the native vegetation to grow around it to outcompete it, hopefully. So sheep can graze this one. One of our properties that has this, the sheep have been grazing it. And they actually do a very decent job of keeping it down. So the plants in the pasture grow just a few, maybe less than a foot tall, whereas the plants in the fence line grow about 4 feet tall. So they're effective at reducing the number of flowers and seeds produced, but not total control.
Mhm.
All right, well, that was my fun show and tell, just a couple other fun updates. We're working on
Quick
applying.
question on weed identification. Maybe these two gentlemen are far more expert. I couldn't tell you whether I've ever seen one of these, but I've seen lots of thistles. Is there Is there technology that says you point the sensor and it tells you?
There is various apps that you can download. Typically, you need a little bit of knowledge to be able to understand the app, what features you're looking for. So it'll ask you, how many leaflets does it have? And you have to know the terminology behind how to describe the plants. With this one, we know it's in the area, and we know the other thistles that are common here. And so we're able to compare our knowledge that we're learning from dealing with other thistles to, okay, this one is a little bit fuzzier. This one will sprout at a different time than some of our other thistles. So there's a lot of environmental cues that we also listen to in determining its
So there
identity.
is nothing out there where you tear a leaf off and you stick it inside this thing and it.
Not that I'm
spits out the-
aware of.
Okay, I think we need that.
Yeah, I would love that. It's a new market opportunity for you. So we are beginning our treatments for this thistle and another Class A thistle, a couple other Class A thistles in the next few weeks. We're also doing our spring surveys with both of our inspectors, going out and looking for, we have shiny geranium, Italian arum, poison hemlock, and lesser celandine are our most common ones right now. We will be attending Earth Day this weekend at the lake, so we will hope to be making connections with many citizens there. And I'm working on applying for additional knotweed funding through the WSDA. Their funding is on a 2-year cycle, so they've just opened this one up for the next biennium. And then the State Weed Board has additional funding available for the next biennium. So I'll be applying for those funds to continue to help there. And then the last thing I wanted to share is that we have, one of my favorite sayings is, weeds don't respect boundaries. And I find myself in a situation where weeds are not respecting boundaries. So Clark County has notified me that they have found a Class A aquatic species in Lake Merwin, which, as you know, is one of our border lakes. So we're working together with Pacificor to survey for the species and come up with a treatment plan. With that said, Clark County also has the same species. It's called variable leaf milfoil. And they have it in 19 different ponds. So we will be looking to survey any and all water bodies as the summer progresses. So that's going to be an interesting one because aquatics require a lot of permits to do proper treatments and things like that. So while we may be identifying and detecting those infestations this year, if they're here, I doubt that a lot of treatment will happen. Some of the aquatics fragment very easily. And so if you try to hand pull the plants, they will break off and resprout downstream. So oftentimes herbicides are needed. So we'll be doing some surveys with Clark County and focusing in our areas, of course, to see if we have that too. I doubt that it stayed on their side of the lake. So that's upcoming. Any questions for noxious weeds?
How are you handling the glyphosates?
So we are still using glyphosates. I've been to a number of scientific presentations that have explained how people are getting to the conclusions that they're getting to within the lawsuits. And the exposure level that we are at is nowhere near what they're doing to the lab animals to come up with their study findings. So we are still using glyphosates. In some cases, it is one of our best options. It's actually a relatively safe chemical to be using in the environment. It binds to the soil, so there's no residual activity once it's in the soil. And it is a non-selective herbicide. So where we use it, it does treat grasses and broadleaves. And sometimes that's a factor or not. So there's also an aquatic version that we are using, and it's one of 3 chemicals that we have in stock that's approved for use in aquatic areas. So no, we're not applying it directly to the water, but it is safe to be used in those areas because it doesn't harm the fish species there.
Do we need in combination maybe with HHS let people know how to use the glyphosates without encumbering their health?
Yeah, we could look into something like that. I'd be happy to have those discussions.
That makes sense.
I don't know who throughout everywhere is using it, but yeah.
I'm just thinking it's still what I would use in my backyard, right?
Yeah. So, interesting you say that. I just gave a presentation, 2 different presentations this week on reading pesticide labels. And a lot of people have come to me asking about organic options or what about using just vinegar? And from the research that I have done, the first problem with vinegar is that it's not a registered pesticide. There's a federal insecticide, rodenticide. It's the FIRFA, FIFRA. But it requires that anything labeled to treat a pest must have an EPA registration number. And so vinegar does not have an EPA registration number for that. In addition, going on reading all of the labeling and the SDS sheets available for it, it's actually a very harmful chemical to humans if you were to get exposed to it. It can cause burns on your skin if you're getting the concentrate on you, whereas many of our herbicides that we're using don't. So we're looking at reading the labels in the SDS sheets, and that's more alarming for some of these organic products that people are using than some of the herbicides that we use.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Another question, are you having any difficulty with the Pacific Corps? They're just totally, they're on board with you.
They're on board. We're going out, they're bringing a boat, and the Department of Ecology is bringing down a boat. And then myself and Clark County will be joining. There will be 8 of us total, but between the 2 boats, we'll be doing a survey. So yes, they've been very on board, ready to tackle the issue. I know they've already talked about permitting and things like that for the aquatic treatments. I think they've already contacted a contractor who's prepared to do that kind of treatment. So.
Is this the kind of thing where if I put my boat in the lake, I can and take it out and I put it in another lake? Okay. Do we have any programs where you actually, you pull your boat out of Lake Merwin and you wash it down with this particular spray that helps?
So I don't know that there are currently any in place, but there are a variety of options out there. I know Fish and Wildlife has been working throughout the state to install decontamination stations. And there's various models for that. That they have boat checks on some of the highways coming into the state. They're working on expanding that program. And those boat checks are not only checking for noxious weeds, but also invasive mussels. The quagga zebra mussel is the biggest concern. And then there's also the New Zealand mud snail. So throughout the state, there are boat stations. I don't think we have one on our side of the state on the I-5 corridor. I did mention the decontamination stations to Pacific Corps. I'm not sure if they're going to look into that or not. And then the Washington Invasive Species Council also has a stencil for boat launches. It just says clean, drain, dry. And so they're able to loan out that stencil if that's something that we wanted to install across boat stations across the county. So that's available, but there's resources out there. It's just making the right connections.
Yeah, and it's different if it's a big launch area or just a backward launch area. Hot steam. And then
Commissioner Mortensen mentioned earlier about public education of the use of different pesticides. You might want to double check with the WSU Extension.
Okay.
Their Master Gardener program have a pretty well-developed communication network in terms of getting the word out.
Yes.
And maybe they'll sponsor a seminar too. That
They already did. That's what the presentation I did last week was the Master Gardener program. And I'm actually officially Master Gardener now. I finished all of my volunteer hours, so.
we just think we just see your product.
Yeah. Noxious weeds.
Right? So, yes, I've been working very closely with Gary and trying to get some pesticide information out there when possible. because it's very important. It's a serious topic and pesticides should be taken seriously. And I think that some people go out there treating it as if it was their shampoo and just, treat it nonchalantly, but it really needs to be taken seriously regardless of what you're using. So I will continue to educate on that topic.
And then one quick, this will be my last one. What happens if you don't do anything in Lake Merwin? Is there a prognosis or a forecast that says you'll have a swamp?
I don't have a forecast. Unfortunately, there's no crystal ball. With this species, I think that if it were to be let to invade, it would be getting stuck in boat props frequently. It would reduce the ability to swim because it likes those shallower areas. And so along the banks, I think it would start to take over and reduce any recreation opportunities. I'm not sure what it would do yet for habitat for aquatic species. But I think that it would have, it's being listed as a Class A noxious weed, it must have some pretty detrimental impacts. But I'm still learning about that species myself.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you for allowing me to share
Yeah.
updates.
Don't let me hang on to this thing. I don't want to be that'll show up in the daily news. I don't see WSU extension. Gina, I guess we're back to you. Or you good? Okay.
Good afternoon. Stuff out. Okay. So I wanted to circle back to the board today on a couple of things. One is the Consolidated Homeless Grant application that we put together. I sent it to the board the end of last week. We had a work session on it where we kind of talked about it. There was a couple questions from the board and came back and answered those questions. The board did give direction to fill the application out, so we did that. I sent that to the board. If we want to submit the application, it's due on the 28th. And just as a reminder for the process, if we submit the application, the state will come back and present a contract May-ish, hopefully May or June. In the meantime, if we do submit the application, I would like to post an RFQ to solicit for providers for the funds. I was able to connect with the mediation center a little bit. We had some conversation about that and if some of the funds can be used to help support some of their activities. The state had said, yes, it can support some of their activities. I had a good conversation with them about how they see their services moving forward and how they work with landlords and tenants in the resolution process and what that looks like. So I would look forward to working a little bit more with them on some of those activities. So I wanted to circle back to that, see if the board had any questions on the application that I sent and see where we would like to go from here. Oh, I hear it. Yes.
That must mean the air conditioning is working. I mean, look at the bright side, the air conditioning is working.
The sad thing is, I think that's not the roof above us, is it?
No.
Isn't that the jail?
It's the old jail.
Contact facilities?
She'll have Bailey.
If it's
do
the
it.
jail though, doesn't the sheriff have responsibility to take care of that?
Look at all the stuff you're taking on today. You're taking on lost pets, all that kind of stuff. Sorry, Gina.
That's okay.
This contract, if commissioners decided to do nothing, which they can decide to do,
Mhm.
the state just goes direct and awards funds.
Correct. So the
Yeah.
state would open a request for proposals in Cowlitz County and contract directly
Yeah.
with a provider.
So my thoughts on that process is I would be in favor of submitting the contract, because I think the public, and I use this word, need a throat to choke if they are having issues with something. And if it's just direct, sent direct from the state, they really don't have anybody to come and voice to. Not that I want to sit here and be yelled at all the time, but I think it's important that they have that throat to choke. So I'm just one person, but I'd probably be in favor of sending that in.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So do we need a motion? Is that to forward it or to submit it, or did you already get directions to do that?
I think I just would need consensus from the board. There is one page in the application that
You okay with that?
requires a signature.
I think looks to me that all commissioners are agreeable with us doing that, Gina. Okay,
I'll get your signature then on the form to submit with the application for that before Friday.
okay.
Okay. And then I just had a couple other things just as updates. One, on the environmental health side, we've received notice that the solid waste enforcement grant has opened up. We've had some conversation about that earlier in the year about the different activities that we can do with that grant. We were kind of tied into our solid waste enforcement previously because we were mid-grant cycle. And so we're looking at the possibilities there and be working with Public Works too on, they also submit for the planning side of that grant. So we're doing some coordination and we'll come back to the board at some point with some more information on that.
Because we looked at that, we heard conversation on that today out in West Longview about the recycle center that we've closed.
Yeah.
But the grant as it sits now didn't have any options to help us
Right.
do stuff there.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
And it's intended to help the people that just dump their trash anyplace.
Well, I'm still learning about the possibilities within the grant. What our piece for it, for the current grant cycle was solely that solid waste enforcement. So responding to complaints, for example, of solid waste issues. So we're looking at kind of what flexibilities there are within that grant.
Including we were, at least, I think we talked about hiring somebody to go through the trash, figure out who did it and
More of the investigative work.
investigative work, yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna look at what we might be able to do and see if it would fit within that. Yeah. So more conversation on that in the near future. The last item, this time of year, we gear up for the CDBG Public Services Grant application, which in the past has been for a project called Meals on Wheels. We received notice from the state that they're doing, they would like to do an amendment this year instead of a full new grant application, which is different than years past. And so what that means is they're asking counties to decide if they want to continue with their current public service activity, which for us is the rural senior meals delivery program, Meals on Wheels, or look at a new activity. If we continue with the same activity, they'll send an amendment that allocates the funding for the next fiscal year. We can look at new activities and consider that. I think we would then, we would have to revise the scope of work and potentially hold a public hearing to get input on those activities and move forward that way. It's slightly different than how it's been done in years past. I know we've had conversation and we're looking forward to that public hearing opportunity to have more conversation and maybe hear from CAP to give kind of a whole picture of what the program looks like. We can certainly do that and schedule schedule a work session maybe and invite them in so we can hear and still get that piece. And then at that point, maybe decide how we want to move forward with that grant application. So that's kind of what I was initially thinking, that I just wanted to touch base with the board on that and see if that sounds okay, or if we should move forward a different way.
Are there other activities
I was
that
gonna say, I'm not sure what
that
the different way is.
your department's willing to support?
There's other activities with this particular grant. We do have to work with Lower Columbia CAP as our local community action agency. So we are limited in that capacity, but we could do different types of activities. There's a whole list of activities, and I'm happy to send that to the board for consideration. It's anything from education to, there's some youth focused things. It's kind of a wide variety. Senior services for individuals with disabilities. There's kind of this whole slew of public service activities
Yeah.
that we could look into.
So whatever we decided, it'd have to stay within the cap
Mhm.
fund, because that's how the contract is written right now.
Right.
So maybe, and I had a chance to meet her, and I think she's a fine woman, and I would hope she would come and explain some of that, but maybe they could explain how you could use it too, even though we realize it's all within the cap system.
Okay, yeah, we could do that. Maybe she could give,
Just make,
Yeah.
I want to make sure my colleagues agree.
Yeah,
we're on the right.
we've been approached in the past for the Grange.
Mm.
And the Grange has changed its nature. It's more of a community center, and like almost de facto now it's a senior center, but anyhow, there are things like that I think are wholesome ways to spend the money. Even some of the library stuff, I don't know, a lot of libraries have fewer books than they have the desktop computers now. Slight exaggeration, but
But these particular ones would have to stay within cap, so they'd have to be willing to work with these people? Is that what we're?
yeah, I don't, the funds come to us. We take a little bit off the top. They go to cap,
Mhm.
and they may take a little bit off the top and subcontract it out in some way, but
Yeah.
I don't know. At that point, it's out of our control.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's worth a conversation, in my opinion, Gina,
Okay.
is because I know when I chatted with her, she, at that point in time, was willing to partner with other
Mhm.
people, kind of like Commissioner Mortensen's alluding to
Mhm.
there, so.
Okay, we'll get that set up and we can go from there. Okay. Thank you.
I cut you off. Dennis, did you have something?
No, I was fine. I was thinking about something that we were always asking for and never seemed to get any cooperation from the agencies, and that is evidence of success on the programs. More than just number of meals served, but you know, what challenge are they trying to solve, and are they actually solving it?
Yeah, that's always a good point.
And we're learning, you have to be very precise in what you ask them for. As they would say, well, we served 400 meals, that's success. Well, compared to what, you know?
Depends on what's in the meal, right?
Did we answer your stuff today? Okay. Do we have any miscellaneous from the audience? I was gonna say something, Jessica.
I just have a request for an executive session for collective bargaining under miscellaneous.
Okay, how long do you think?
10 minutes.
10 minutes? You were off yesterday.
I know,
I know, okay.
try harder.
So we'll move to executive session for 10 minutes.
The board is extending an executive session for a period of 5 minutes until 2:31.
Okay, we're back from executive session. No decisions were made. Go ahead, Jessica.
Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I do have a request to fill with overlap. There will be a sheriff support specialist leaving the county in about 3 months. They're currently on leave, so we would like to fill that position with overlap for potentially 2 to 3 months.
Okay,
I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with it.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Any miscellaneous?
Ham Road. Ham Road, that's the one that you
Oh.
looked into something and then the gentleman contacted me and we've discussed stuff. He feels like there was a legal issue there. And so I said, feel that way, I've got to step back and let the legal team handle that.
Yeah,
So I just stepped away.
okay.
So that's where it's at. There's pending litigation.
I gave him the opportunity for him to say, no, I didn't mean it was that kind of thing. And but he just came back and said, okay.
He doesn't mention anything like that in the email that the two of
No.
us got, so.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about what the issue is and what the problem is that.
I think he interpreted, this is just again, I think he interpreted an email from Patrick Harbison in 2017 that it was okay for the individual to do what's in question. And I read Patrick's email and it simply says, in order to get this taken care of, you got to send in, you got to apply for a variance.
Yeah,
I suppose if you're ambitious enough, you could interpret that as a suggestion that it would be okay, but I think any logical legal interpretation of that is he told you have to follow a process.
yeah. That's the way I read it too.
Yeah. By the way, the general topic in general is interesting because it shows some idiosyncrasies in the law, but as Dennis has reminded me often, we don't make the laws, at least the ones in Olympia.
Yeah.
Anything else? See no hands and you see nobody approaching?
I did get an update from David Berger about the opioid and ASO interaction, and he said he's working with everybody except Wakayam. Wakayam is not necessarily interested in doing it on its own. So and still yet for us to see how that goes.
Okay,
So he's trying to, they're trying to accommodate all the counties that have said, no, we want to take care of it ourselves.
yeah, which we appreciate.
And don't remember, Dennis, did you talk about Bill 5080? That's the one where the Liquor and Cannabis Board is now going to have to take into account the county or the municipality that says, yeah, well, they didn't get a valid permit or they're not properly zoned. And so they, in the past, they have just issued the
So the
Cannabis
state, state changed the law that
Yeah.
requires them
Yeah,
to consider or
I think it's stronger than that. I didn't read it.
think it's stronger
exactly.
than consider.
good.
It says
I had not
consider.
heard that was,
Yeah. Now, if they ignore our laws, would they ignore, they meaning the other cannabis outfit, would they ignore the state law also?
I think getting the permit from the state is the most important thing for folks who want to do it legally. If you're
Yeah.
doing it illegally, it doesn't matter what the state
Yeah.
does, you know. Well, that's nice.
And there's another issue. I've forwarded you the emails on the commission on overweight trucks or something like that. And there's nothing for you to do, just to keep you apprised. I'm trying to get input. I know I've talked to Darlene Johnson. I forwarded to Ed Orcutt and Jeff Wilson. I'm particularly interested in Ed's input because he knows about this stuff far more than I do.
Yeah. Woodland Council was working on that too, when I was down at their council meeting, it came up.
Yeah, I think unfortunately, it's one of those things. There are many sections in the bill, and the one section is one section of
Mhm.
how do you evaluate a bill like that?
Well, that's why they like to talk to lobbyists,
Yeah.
and sometimes that's
So
good.
should that be
sometimes it's not
something
so
that goes
good.
to CFM?
What?
Is that something that should go to CFM? I don't think so.
They,
right now.
don't, they're just doing federal stuff for us,
Yeah. Oh, but that is,
but we can hire somebody. Kelso does.
yeah.
They, they seem to have scored quite a bit of money from the legislature. They just took it away from us.
Okay. I don't see you approaching, so I guess.
So actually, I do have that list I mentioned the other day about health issues that should be prioritized.
Oh, good. Yeah.
And I'll have Kelly send you copies of the list, and we can just look at the list and see, is this something that maybe we can, I think maybe I'll go ahead and forward it to Kelly and say, you know, here's some of the things we should be looking at. And what do we need more information on? Because we've not done any prioritizing, and the budgets are still being prepared, so. That's it. That's about it.
Okay. No hands, nobody approaching. We will adjourn this meeting.
Have a great day, gentlemen.
Thanks.